name is Steve Mann. Welcome to Counterpoint B2B. Counterpoint B2B is a podcast that focuses on all things B2B marketing and specifically picking out specific topics where there are lots of varying degrees of agreement or non, and really hashing out these ideas so that you, our listener, can decide which approach is good for you. Today, we're going to be talking about AI. Specifically, is AI-supported marketing artificial? To what degree do we need AI to be an effective marketers, if at all? Today, I'm joined by Pam Didner and Doug Hunter. Hi, folks. Pam, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Certainly. Hi, Steve. Hi, Doug. And hi, everyone. So Pam Didner here, and it's wonderful to actually be part of this conversation. And I'm a B2B marketer through and through. Can you tell? And I live and breathe on the B2B, especially in content marketing, account-based marketing, sales enablement, anything that builds the sales and marketing alignment. And I specialize or work with a marketer to actually provide values to their sales team.
Great. Doug?
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Pam. Great to be on here with you guys. I most recently led the growth marketing, the comms teams for Lattice Semiconductor, and I also built their strategy and biz ops teams. So I've got a couple of decades of B2B marketing in my background here.
Well, I'm joined by other great B2B marketers, not me being great, but they being great. So thank you for joining me today. So as I said, we're going to be talking about AI-supported marketing. And, you know, as we've been through the B2B journey together, there's been all sorts of shiny new toys, right? There's been, you know, the social platform, then the sophisticated MarTech platform. There was email. There was, you know, B2B trying to be like B2C, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the question begs itself, is AI supported marketing just the shiny new toy on the block for marketers to play with?
I don't think that AI is a shiny new toy. I think AI is somehow here to stay. And we can see that on the B2C side of applications. And the AI is invisible to all of us at this time. You know, if you are driving to work, which is we don't do it now, you use Waze. And that's obviously, you know, algorithm and artificial intelligence. And if you are doing Google search, and they will anticipate what kind of sentences and what you are looking for, and they will try to complete your phrases. And that's also algorithm artificial intelligence in work. And I think and if you are logged into your Spotify, they are making recommendation in terms of what kind of music you want to hear. So artificial intelligence is already kind of embedded, and that you don't see it and in our lives. And that kind of applications will also translate on the B2B side. And in fact, they are right now. If you see a lot of tools, like even CRM, like a Salesforce, they basically said, you know, AI reinforced or AI a specific type of features that has been embedded. There are many social media platforms that you are using actually have the algorithms or platforms or tools that actually built into it for you to use. And somehow the marketers will just need to understand what that is and be aware of it and to know how to use it.
Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree and I disagree with Pam simultaneously. You know, Steve, when you look at what you listed at the head end of this with, you know, things like email, websites is being the shiny new things. And the reality was they were the shiny new things and they are here to stay simultaneously. So I think AI is in that same bucket. I think Pam's exactly right in that there's many things where AI has penetrated and is making a tangible difference in the world, a tangible difference for the better. You can also argue it's making a tangible difference for the worse. You know, the Wall Street Journal today had an article on, you know, the impact of Instagram and the Instagram algorithm on teenage girls. So there's good and there's bad sides of it. I think I disagree with Pam is, I think people have rushed into AI and they have done so a bit prematurely because it's a technology that really needs to mature. If you think of the AI, there's two different aspects to it. One is the algorithm and the other is the data set. The algos, it is true that people like Google have wonderful AIs. It wasn't always clear to me as a marketer for whose benefit that AI was for.
So true.
In the Google ads, was that for the benefit of me to get more conversions? Or was that for the benefit of Google to get more ad sales off me if I adopt their, what they're telling me to do with my ad campaigns? And the second part of that after the algos is the data, which is you need to have large training data sets. So if you're a CPG company or you're a B2C company and you have massive amounts of traffic, then the AI can be useful. If you're much more of a niche manufacturer or something, you may not have enough volume to generate the data to give you something meaningful. So AI, is it the shiny new thing? Yes and no.
I agree with Doug to some extent. And there are two layers in terms of leveraging AI. To me, there's AI that embedded into a third-party platforms that if you already purchased that third-party platforms, find a way to leverage that. And there's AI that being used, large data set to do predictive analytics or regression analysis to predict what kind of decision you need to make. I 100% agree you need a large data set for that. For that type of initiative, I don't think any B2B marketing company are rushing to do that unless you have a huge amount of budget. Right? You need to actually have people that know how to run the data set. You need to have clean the data set. You need to actually have somebody build the regression or predictive models. That requires budget and resources. Unless you are big companies, you cannot afford it. Right. So I don't 100% agree that people are rushing to do that.
I mean, if we break this down, think about it this way, if we have B2B marketing as our world, there's a number of things that we do every day and we do with tools, right? First thing we do is we analyze, right? So one of the big buckets that we're beginning to talk about is AI for analytics, right? To make us better with our data and to define and describe and extract better insights to improve our marketing. And then there are the tools themselves, the algos themselves that are embedded in particular products to make that specific product better, like a website optimization tool, for instance, right? And then there are the final area, and I'm sure I'm missing something, is how do we create a more effective experience for both customers and prospects? And I think when I think about it in those three broad areas, am I missing something? Does that feel good to you? And if so, are we better in some areas than others? So, I mean, to your point about data.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, let me give you a quick example from my background. With our website, one of the issues that we had is there's a lot of people coming to the website where we knew who they were. That was in the tens of thousands. But there's a lot of people coming to our website where we had no idea who they were, and that was in the hundreds of thousands. But when you start talking in the tens and hundreds of thousands, you actually then have enough data points to actually put an AI against it and to use it intelligently. So we actually had multiple versions of our website, and we would target content based on personas, based on people's web behavior. And because we had these tens of thousands of people where we knew about them, we're actually able to hire someone fairly cost effectively to run an AI against that and then make inferences about the hundreds of thousands of people that we didn't know. So there's an example of using AI both for analytics and to create a more effective customer experience. And it was actually fairly cost effective. That was more of a 4 to low 5-figure cost of engagement.
Yeah, that's a low hanging fruit. Yes.
Yeah, that was absolutely low hanging fruit with high value.
All right, so we're happy with analytics and AI, saying in our world, it's a wonderful tool. And then you've also linked it to personalizing and improving returns on the marketing dollar or marketing effort because of that. And Pam, what about in the third area, which is, actually embedded AI in the product to make it better? What's your perspective on that?
So yeah, I would like to address that, talking about AI's benefit. I think you touch on some of them. In general, I think AI has 3 major benefits for B2B marketers. One is, can AI replace repetitive tasks? Can AI segment and personalize a little bit data better, which is referred to what Doug was talking about? Third is related to a second one, which is if they can actually target it or segment a whole lot better, they learn from it, can they predict and create some sort of predictive analysis and recommendation for us that will make our job easier. So there are three segments, right? Repetitive task, personalization, segmentation. Third is predictive analytics. So what Doug was touching a little bit is on the second and the third benefit I'm talking about. So when you are talking about embedded into the tools, then it depending on how that's embedded. If it's embedded to repeat some of the tasks that we have done and can replace it to make our job easier, great, right? Or it's embedded into the tools that actually help to segment and personalize the data, great. Can they also embed it to also make the recommendation that for us to make a judgment which direction that we should go? So from my perspective, the embedding software can be created for anything. It's how you write the code, how you write a user interface, what objectives you want to accomplish. Because of that, how that artificial intelligence is embedded into the tool and how we can use it is depending on the functionality, how that's created. Does that make sense? So to me, artificial is used in, not correctively, that's a wrong word. Can be used is these are three things I'm talking about. So it's depending on how the artificial intelligence is embedded into the software.
So we're definitely agreeing, and we're recommending to B2B marketers that they go heavy in terms of AI for analytics. That's what I'm hearing right now. And what you're saying, Pam, is that I can bend that a little bit differently.
Yes. So what I'm trying to say is AI has objectives and they have a benefit associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
As a marketer, you need to understand what you are using AI for,
Mm-hmm.
and understand your process flow and understand where you can inject the AI to actually help you. So you have to have a clear understanding of what that is. Does that make sense? I'm not saying that you should use AI for anything or any kind of channels. It's understand your process, understand your objective, understand where you can inject the AI. But before you can do that, you have to understand your process. You have to understand your workflow a whole lot better, in addition to your objectives.
Can you give us an example?
For example, let's assume that on your website, you get a lot of leads and you have to route the leads to different salespeople, okay? And in the past, this kind of things tend to be done manually, right? So the leads coming to your website, the inside sales actually have to kind of go through it, qualify it, and then they route it to a different salespeople depending on the leads. Maybe they have an additional information about the leads, and this belong to kind of like a Boston, so they route it to somebody that manages the Northeast region. Let's just assume that, make it simple. What if this routing process is very, very manual? And sometimes when you get the information actually on the website, you can see the IP address, and the IP address can also see which company that's coming from. If you have all those information, can you use artificial intelligence to actually route the lead on your behalf? Right, that's one example.
I would argue that you don't need AI for something like that. See, this is an example of a shiny new object discussion.
What if you combine multiple different process with it? You route the lead to Steve. Maybe the artificial intelligence can also customize, write an email on Steve's behalf, right? But for that, that's not something that can be done just by a regular tool. I agree with you, Steve, to some extent. At this time, AI is not mature enough to say that you need AI as a part of your B2B application. That I agree. But as an early adopter, sometimes you have to try. And through trying, you optimize it.
Yeah. Because I hear you describing workflow tools. I'm sorry, Doug, go ahead, please.
Sure. To me, what I would say is, building on what Pam was saying there, is we have the need to reality check the AI. Because, I have a saying with my kids sometimes where we talk, arguing about something, they'll bring up some point, I'll say, you're technically right and you're practically wrong. And I think there's a risk with the AI that it you need to ask yourself, there has to be a trust building exercise, which
Mhm.
is that lead getting routed to the right person, really? And is that AI and is the email that's generating the right email, the
Right.
right text for that? It just based on the conversation, because there still is a value to human intuition. If you can use the AI for looking at
100% agree
things,
with that.
yeah. So if you can use the AI for things that are retrospective or mechanical,
Mhm.
I think that's great. But as you look forward, even in the predictive realm, we have to be very careful about the types of things that we're predicting.
Right.
Predicting whether or not this unknown customer coming in is from the industrial, the communication to the consumer market segment. That's an awesome thing to do with an AI based on all these hundreds of thousands of past interactions. Predicting what the next hot trend is in the market before it fully emerges, that's going to be really difficult for an AI because that's not a retrospective type of
Right.
task.
Right.
So I think we need to be careful the types of problems, and then we also need to reality check.
I 100% agree with you to some extent that even if you run a regression analysis, and that it's also the arts and science and balance, the AI's recommendation with your gut. If you have been in the industry for a long period of time, when they run the analysis and you look at what data is generated by artificial intelligence, sometimes you have to make a judgment call. Does this make sense? And I think what you are suggesting is, when you run a data analysis and the quality of data matters, at the same time, you also have to apply your own judgment. That I 100% agree. It's just like GPT-3, right? The Guardians asked GPT-3, the brief GPT-3 to write essay why artificial intelligence is still beneficial to human being. They wrote eight different essays very, very quickly. But you know what? It still required the editors of the Guardians to edit it before they can publish it. So that process, I 100% agree. You should not take AI, whatever it suggests, as it is. You still need to apply the judgment to it.
I think a beautiful example of what Pam is saying is Tesla and autopilot, because that essentially is an AI, and everyone's completely, people are trusting it and they're getting killed and hurt because they trust it and they're not applying the judgment to it on top of it.
Well, I trust Tesla's autopilot. I don't trust its windshield wipers, ML, though. It's horrible. Seriously. And so I just want to tie off what we've been saying and kind of give you my perspective. I agree that AI can potentially do these wonderful things. What I've heard you describing, though, is a sophisticated and well-oiled marketing automation tool, in a sense, because virtually everything that we're talking about right now, to some degree, can be instrumented within a really well-done marketing automation tool. And so I think if you're a B2B marketer, the question that you need to ask yourself is, am I going to get more value out of using this AI driven marketing automation system? And I don't know to what degree Einstein is embedded in some of the Pardot capabilities, but that would be an example, or just go with the straight, sophisticated yet powerful marketing automation tool. And so, but would you agree that that's the question that B2B marketers need to ask?
I think the answer to your hypothesis is maybe, and it depends. Because
do not equivocate with me.
Okay, so it's no. No, there's a whole wide range of maturities and a whole wide range of problems. And I think going back to what Pam was saying earlier, yeah, as a marketer, you should always constantly be running tests. I mean, I used to tell my team that if you're not failing on a regular basis, you're not trying things, you're not doing new and different things. If you're not doing new and different things and trying new things, you're going stagnant and you're falling behind your competition.
To paraphrase Thomas Edison.
Yes,
right.
yes.
Okay.
Long before AIs, he had that kind of vision there. So I think you need to go find an AI that makes sense for your problem, and you need to go try it. And if it works, embrace it. If it doesn't work, tweak it. If it still doesn't work, wait.
Okay. Yeah. So just like any other tool, it needs to be vetted within, not only in market, but within your particular organization and your particular needs.
Certainly,
okay.
Certainly. Right. And this is especially true in the digital world. And I think in the traditional world, you might have a lot of leeway, but in the digital world, you definitely have to kind of think it through. Even you decide to source a tool that just to do, say, email automation, you have to think it through in terms of how this will, is this tool can back end integrated to your CRM, to your other social media platforms or whatnot. So I do agree with you that everybody, even though every single marketing departments, they use the same marketing channels. You know, we all use email marketing, we all use the pay medias, we all use events. But every company use those tools a little bit differently. And also the setups are a little bit differently. And also, you know, the workflow is a little bit differently. And you need to think through in terms of what that is and then determine, just like Doug indicated, you know, how would that apply to you? How can you benefit from it?
You know, there's another interesting thing here, Pam, which is we may not have a choice about AI. You know, one of the big things
that I also agree, by the way, we have no choice. I mean, it's already, the train already left the station a long time ago. And,
yeah, because I mean, if you think about, you know, the hot topic for the last couple of weeks with Google and the SERP, where Google has been going through, instead of using your title tags, it's been using the H1s of your body text to write the own headlines. You know, the way you may meticulously craft how you want yourself to look on the search engine result page, that may not be what Google displays because of their AI.
So next question that I have is around data and the algos. So obviously all the algos need to be trained for them to get smart. But what if you have bad data? What if there's bias in the data? Or what if there's bias on behalf of the individuals that are doing the training? And I know that's a very real problem. What happens then for a B2B marketer? I mean, doesn't that mean that the tool that they're going to be using is worthless?
Okay, I think there's issues here on both the data and the algo side with bias. And let me give you a couple quick examples. One that's kind of ripped from the headlines. You know, Facebook's had problems in the past couple of weeks because they were identifying certain people as animals. You know, and this follows on to Google having the same problem a number of years ago. You would think they would have learned, but they haven't. And another issue would be on the algo side, which is like with, you know, a certain large search engine's ad program. I don't know if we trash talk particular brands on this podcast, but many times it wasn't clear to me is what their algos were recommending for my campaign to benefit them or to benefit me. Because many times it felt like the recommendation was pointing towards something that would result in higher ad spend that would benefit them, not necessarily more conversions for me. So in the former case with the data, there's huge reputational damage. You know, Pam was talking earlier about sending auto-generating emails to send to people.
Right.
You know, if your algo is sending absolutely a misdirected, mistargeted, misidentifying email to someone, you're going to have a lot of damage to your brand equity from an algo run amok. Even in the example of that bad algo I was talking to you about with the advertising, you know, I view that brand with a lot more skepticism than I used to after trying to reality check their recommendations. I know, Pam, what's your experience?
You know, I agree with you in terms of the data training set is so critical, the quality of data. I think that's why there are a lot of companies, they are kind of hesitant to actually take the AI to a next level, is they don't trust their own data. And all the data set, it doesn't matter which company I have worked with, there's always a data decay issue, right? The email that you have captured 2 years ago, it may not be current right now. So there's every single quarter, right? If you don't clean your data, there's a data decay issues and that you have to deal with. And also there's another issue, is the naming of the data. For example, the image of a Pam that you see as me, how are you going to classify and label me? Do you label me as Asian? Do you label me as Chinese? Do you label me as Asian American? Do you label me as female? How you label is going to impact how the algo is going to be trained. So the labeling issue is also a huge deal. And, I can totally understand the Facebook identify, certain human being as animals. There's a certain you probably can come back to multiple different issues in terms of maybe the algorithm, maybe the regression the model they set up, or even maybe the labeling of data. I think I was talking to a client who actually not working with me, but they want to do an initiative that's AI related, and they even have a budget set aside. At the end, they actually call it STOP, because they went through their data, they have in-depth conversation and very honest conversation, and look at the data set. They don't think their data is clean enough to actually move forward. So, and on top of it, they are running an issue in terms of how to better label the data. And there's many different opinions within the company, even among the IT or different marketers, to actually come to a conclusion. What other field needs to be included into, the data set? And they actually put on hold and want to have a conversation, have that really, really look into a data first before they move forward. But I'm pretty sure that Doug and you will agree with me. If you don't take care of your data or and understand the quality of data first, is garbage in and garbage out, and that will inherently create a bias.
So there's inherent bias in data. There is intentional bias in data.
True.
And then there is bias that's introduced by
how you
the
label
dirtiness
data,
of the data,
data.
right? And then there's bias that can be introduced by the individuals who are actually doing the training. So we were talking a little bit about,
there are 4 layers. Now you're talking about 4 different layers of complexities right there.
True. So we're talking about, brand loyalty of AI tools in a sense, and we're responsible for brand loyalty. The way we're describing it is like, wow, maybe AI is not ready for our brand loyalty. We said that AI is already left the station, right?
No, but if you go back to what Pam was saying about the data and the data issues, those are issues that the company had independent of the AI.
Right.
Which is
I like that statement.
Yeah, is like all the systems and processes and algos that they have today may not be AI, but they certainly have issues because they don't have clean and accurate data, and they don't have a data migration path and things like that. So AI, I think, is a journey. We're at the front end of a 5, 10, 20-year journey here, and people have to start taking people have to start taking steps towards that, that include things like clean up your data and come to a consensus. Those are discussions that you need to have independent of the AI.
That makes sense, because it doesn't matter what tool you use. If you've got bad data, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter. I 100% agree with you. I mean, Doug was talking about Facebook. Remember 2018 that, Amazon didn't come out officially say this, but they tried to automate their hiring process because they are hiring people like crazy. So they use algorithm, try to build using their own data set to kind of screen out the potential candidates. But because majority of the people or their data set in the past 10 years tend to be engineers, guess what? 85% of them tend to be male. So when you are using that data set to train their algorithm, guess what? They naturally screen out the females and minorities, right? It's inherent bias. And then eventually they kill that project. But they did try, right? That's just taking initiative. But at the end, they know, no, this is not working. We have to kill it. I think at one point, Doug, you are right. At some point, when you run analysis, you invested huge amount of money and huge amount of budget and resources to do the AI initiative. At the end, you still have to apply human judgment and say this data set, this recommendation is not right. When the time to kill it, you have to kill it because it's not right, right?
So, great, fantastic. What would be your one piece of advice to a B2B marketeer who's been asked to evaluate technology for their MarTech stack, and part of that technology has an AI backbone? What recommendations would you give to them?
Pam?
Doug, you want me to go ahead?
Yes.
So I'm not going to call out a specific vendor. My advice to all the B2B marketers, and even when I work for my clients, is I personally think artificial intelligence will be embedded into a lot of third-party tools moving forward. Salesforce, Einstein, and even a lot of the social media platforms that we use to syndicate our content. They're already using that. And my recommendation is understand the third-party tools that you are using right now. What features actually have the algorithms and the AI built into it? Try to understand that, right? You don't have to run a big AI initiative to say that you know AI, but just the third-party tool. Try to understand that. Try to understand the downfall and also the pluses. And the great example is purchase intent. There's a lot of third-party platforms will do predict the purchase intent of your prospect. Well, you know what? Use that tool, but use your own judgment or other tool to validate, the recommendation. So my take on this is don't take AI blindly. That's number one. Second thing is, and when you are using any kind of third-party platforms, they actually have AI or algorithm built into it. Try to understand as much as you can.
So in nuclear treaties, trust but verify, I think is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. No, it's a variation of what I was going to say, which is do it with your eyes open.
Yeah.
Be aware of, the data that you have and the quality of the data and what you don't have and the quality of your own processes and the qualities of your own people and your ability to check is what you're being told is what the AI is spitting out, right or wrong. Does it intuitively make sense? Yeah.
I 100% agree. I think, can I share just one personal experience?
Yeah.
Waze is a perfect example, right? Do you know how many times I was like, I just don't think that recommendation is right in terms of the route I should go, all right? And there were times I was like, no, I'm going to trust my instinct. And I was wrong, and he's right. The Waze was right. And there was time I trust, my instinct, and I was right. So I'm keeping score, Pam 25, Waze 23. It's like sometimes they provide a route. It doesn't make any sense to me because I just feel like that's taking an additional 10 minutes. But my husband was like, maybe, the traffic on the other route was actually bad. But there were a couple times I decided not to trust Waze and decided to go to my route and turn out to be perfect. But there were times, I did not trust Waze. I was like, God damn it. I wish I had taken that recommendation. So, it's kind of like a catch-22 to some extent.
But here's a question for you, Pam. Is Waze better than it was 5 years ago?
Oh, yes, by a long shot.
And I think that gets
definitely
to the essence of AI.
Yes, it gets better over time. It's a learning process. Yes.
Right.
Oh, definitely a whole lot better.
Which is why I think you and I are saying, use it, try it, reality check it, and view it as a long-term development.
True.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, this has really been exciting. My last question, though, and it's completely off topic from AI.
Sure.
Are you ready? Okay. So on a rainy day, what is your favorite thing to do to occupy yourself?
Seriously?
Seriously.
Yeah. So Steve, I live up here in the Pacific Northwest. And up here, we are quite used to having rainy days.
Rain,
so
that's true too.
Yeah. So my favorite thing on a rainy day is to go for a walk in the woods.
Really?
There's
Oh
nothing
my
like,
God.
well, no, when you've got
Sound
the rain.
like a Robert Frost. That's what he likes to do. Seriously, walk in the woods. I'm not kidding. I mean, regardless the weather.
It's just good for the soul. I mean, the waterproof hiking boots and the rain pants and the rain jacket and the gloves and the rain hat help, but there's just nothing quite like being out there in nature and the smell of the fresh air and the sound of the pitter pat on the leaves and the birds and the squish of the mud. It's good for you.
I'm with you, Doug.
Oh my God.
I feel you, man. What about you? What about you, Pam?
I cannot be that. On rainy day is a perfect day to binge watch Netflix, man. Doug was like, let's go outside. And Pam was like, let's stay inside.
I'll tell you what, Pam, I'll live stream it for you.
Yeah, there you go. Pam, are you binging anything interesting these days?
I just finished the Schitt's Creek and also what is that show? The good thing.
The Good Place.
The Good Place. I love that show so much. It was fantastic.
Ted Lasso for me these days.
Yeah, The Good Place. I mean, so it was so well written, so well written. I watched that show. I was like, I wish I could write like that, you know. So it was actually very good. I enjoyed it tremendously.
Good.
So.
Thank you both.
Thanks a lot. It was a lot of fun.